Yeah.
After all that work, that's
The
good.
neck holding up?
You know, I think I do better, to be honest, when I'm not, it's this that gets you. Lifting stuff up and stuff over your head is probably better for you. What,
You ready to go? We ready to rock?
I believe so.
All right. Well, welcome everybody on this call. We have 108 in here right now. So real quick, we're going to go through our questions. So when you registered for this event, I asked you to propose a question for the four of us, and I asked you to make it a good one. So what I've done here is I've collected all the most common questions. And because our two first webinars were already programming and then injury to rehab, I thought we could talk business and career on this call with the four of us. So we'll go through business questions first, and the most prevalent question was the COVID uncertainty and what we're doing about it and where we think the industry is going. We got some good questions about the CFSC, and then some good questions about owning a gym. And then the second piece would be the career questions, like what do I do to make more money on the side? How do I brand myself? Questions like that. And then if we have time, we'll do some training questions. I'm allotting 90 minutes for this, but if we need to hop off, we need to hop off. So
yeah, I allotted an hour just so
okay.
I will probably not be here. I thought it was 6 to 7.
Perfect. That's
sorry about that.
fine with us, Mike. So I ask everyone, so Kevin and I learned the first time that you do not ask people to just ask questions, or else they do it in many different places. So I'm going to ask, if you go to the bar, at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A box. When you bring up that Q&A box, that is the only place you can ask relevant questions or clarification questions. Don't send them in the chat box, email us, or text me, or text Mike, Bob, or Kevin, or send individual private messages so that we're all learning from each other. So just only ask questions in that question box, please. And we'll be using this keynote kind of as our guide for all of the questions. And with that, I'm recording this, so everyone will get a video of this afterwards. You guys have any questions before we start?
No, but I'm glad I just learned about the Q&A box. I've been using the chat, so that's good.
Oh, so Mike, this is the webinar.
That's separate, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is the webinar version, Mike. That way we can have just the four of us speaking, and we don't have tons of people coming on and with their mics on and stuff.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, you get extra features, which includes a Q&A box. So if you, Kevin and Bob, pull up the Q&A box, you can actually type answers or see the questions that people are asking.
Will it show up when there is a question in the Q&A? It'll come up with a 1 or a 2 or whatever, yeah.
Yep.
Because the chat sometimes goes too fast.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I ask everyone to just do it in the Q&A box.
Cool. Is there already one?
So yeah, here we go. We got our first one there. Career question. So we're going to start with the COVID uncertainty questions. And people like to hear their own names, so I've included the names for the questions. So Carrie Stout asks, what is the biggest, let me move my Q&A box so I can read this thing. What is the biggest change you anticipate happening in the industry as the result of COVID-19? And Scott Miller asked a similar question. What is the one thing we should be doing right now to prepare our gyms to reopen?
Anybody want to take that one?
I'll take the one how to prepare to open. I think it's got to be a controlled environment at the beginning. I put a bunch of notes down, so I think it's got to be, when you walk in the door, you're gonna have to have sanitizer waiting. You're gonna have to have people trust you. I think limited equipment. I don't think the gym can be bogged down with a ton of stuff laying around. People are gonna think it's not clean. I think hand sanitizers in the bathroom, all different areas, so people know they can get their hands clean. And I think it's gonna be a little bit of smaller groups at the beginning, because I think people aren't going to trust being in big groups. My own opinion, I think that they're going to worry about, being in a lot of people around them. So I think maybe smaller groups spread around the gym, separated. I think 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 3-on-1 is going to be a big hit at the beginning, more so than large groups. I think people are going to have to get trust back to come in the gyms and feel comfortable.
Yeah. And
then going off, you know, Bob covered a lot of the logistics, but I think something that we kind of talked about in our staff meeting the other day was more of like from a communication standpoint, being prepared to reopen, like staying in touch and maintaining communication with your clients, because you want them to be there when they come back. So keeping a consistent relationship and even communicating more, probably more often, because you're not seeing them in person. So texting and emailing and whatever it might be, so that they're kind of like ready and waiting and staying in touch with you. So right when the doors open back up, they start to, you know, do those one-on-ones or do those 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s until the group sessions start back up.
I think a lot of this will be dictated too by what each state decides is okay, right? So like they might say only 10 people at a time, and that will change the way a lot of your options for opening.
Well,
I think
exactly.
Go ahead,
I
Mike.
think that's a big thing in terms of if they say 10 people, you know, like we were talking about even at MBSC, if they said 10 people per room, we could probably still have 30 people on site, but it would have to be really strict. Like we've got to have a plan for 1-hour sessions that are very much like our summer, you know, even with our adults, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, you're out the door. And, you know, you can't let people hang around. You're going to have to, you should have a plan for how you're going to do this. The other thing, masks. I think that we're going to be working in masks in the month of May. I think that's effing stupid, but I think it's going to happen. So you'd better have masks. You better have masks available for clients. You better have masks available for staff, because you don't want to be all of a sudden realize, hey, I can be open tomorrow, except everyone's got to wear a mask, and I'm running around trying to find masks. So I think that's the other thing we should be looking at in terms of preparing, getting out and saying, hey, I'm going to have a couple hundred, maybe, you know, for us, place like us, a big place, maybe 1,000 masks on hand that I've already bought so that I can get through a couple of weeks. Because as Brendon said, if they mandate that, you know, we can have 10 people at a time, that we have to wear a mask, that everybody working out has to wear a mask. Then the other thing you got to figure out, can you work out with a mask on? None of us have tried it. I was talking to
Conditioning might be tough.
a woman the other day, a friend of mine was saying her glasses were all fogged up, and she was just running around the store. She was like, I'm running around Stop and Shop. I just wanted to get out of there. So we don't necessarily even know, what will conditioning look like with masks?
Yeah.
So these are
People
all
want
the
to be the gym caught without having masks too, because
Right.
that doesn't look good, and people might not want to come in if you don't have masks.
and they might not be able to.
Right.
And people might even request. People might say, yeah, I'm going to come back to train, but I want my trainer to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of really weird behavior from a client standpoint when we come back, because there's going to be, a big range of people. There's going to be the people who think it's no big deal, I don't really care, and they're going to want to work out without a mask. And it may be, I was just watching the news, and there were guys golfing in masks on closed golf courses. The police were having to kick them off the golf course with their masks on. I mean, so I think, be prepared for the, Murphy's Law of weirdness. Any weird thing you think might happen probably will.
What do we think about the virtual training space, or what other options are we going to have available now after this, now that everyone's kind of been pushed to virtual?
I don't think virtual is going to be a big deal when we're done, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think there may be a small group of people who still want to do it, but I don't think, and we're doing some virtual group. I don't think there are too many. Kevin, are you doing any virtual one-on-one stuff?
No, no. I mean, just with some of my therapy clients who want me to take them through their rehab exercise, but I think part of it is them feeling like they want to continue to support, movement is medicine, being like, hey, can you coach me through my movement stuff, more so than them really needing it as much, So I couldn't foresee doing too much more, at least on Zoom and things like that. I think people want to be in person.
Yeah, and people want to be in that group. They want to have some place they have to go where they're accountable, and you just don't get that virtually online. So
Yeah, the numbers in the Zoom classes have been different every day. They're always different. The same few 8 or 10 people are always there, and then there's different people popping in and out at different times.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So Margaret asked, what is the Sorry, I have all these windows up that are blocking me from reading the questions. What is the one successful strategy that you use to encourage your clients to do virtual personal training sessions, which we kind of just talked about? And then Corey asked, how are you managing people online concerning their stress, pain, since everything is remote and hands-off nowadays?
Well, I mean, I guess obviously it's a less than ideal situation. So it's like you almost have to hope that a lot of at least I think in a lot of our situations, so the majority of our clients, I think we've done a good enough job training that they know, like, hey, they know like what their alternative exercises are. They know, what they should and shouldn't do. And obviously that's not everybody, but we're trying to provide progressions and regressions to everyone. Like for instance, like we'll demo a squat, an assisted squat, or a squat with a heel lift, and like show all these variations so that way, they have the progressions and regressions. And I think if you're going to be responsibly doing this online, you have to really go out of your way to think about like the worst case scenario, like, okay, who's the worst person potentially in this Zoom group? Like who's the worst moving person, and program for them, and then show them things that could be slightly easier or harder than that. You just have to probably be a little bit more proactively responsible in your programming, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, completely being honest, I haven't had success at all. I've got my personal training clients, only one of them is interested in continuing online virtual personal training because they can afford it and they want somebody to just hold them accountable. But a successful strategy, I have not found one yet that works for most people, because most people like the human interaction and coming to a place where they have to show up. And like you said, Kevin, most of my stuff has all been just support. I feel like trying to support people during this time and try to just communicate with them, stay on them a little bit. But other than that, most people don't. I mean, like there's the few people, right, who would train if there was a nuclear apocalypse happening, and they would train no matter what. But those people aren't the one. You need more than that to pay your bills. So I have not found a successful strategy yet myself. And I think if I had to do virtual training for the rest of my life, I would pick a different job, because it's not for me. I can't do what I believe in online. So that's just my personal opinion and what I've experienced the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, online training is hard. I've been helping one high school girl in Colorado for basically as a favor for a friend. It's really hard because she sends me videos. She's doing like the Train Heroic workout, or she was doing the exercise.com workout, and then she'll send a video, hey, here's what I did. But it's really hard to coach in that setting. It's so foreign to what we do. And I think, Corey had said, stress, pain. I mean, we don't deal with pain in terms of we're very specific with people. If it hurts, you don't do it. So we shouldn't really have anybody who's exercising and says, oh, this exercise hurts. That should be like, that's immediate. So I don't think that ends up being much of a concern for us in terms of, what we're going to do. We know exactly what we're going to do, whether they were online, whether they were in front of us. It would make absolutely no difference. Okay, let's switch that exercise.
Yeah. Stress
is a different story. I mean, I look at it one way. The only stress, I love the quote, I worried about many things. Some of them actually happened. I mean, why stress out at a time like this? There's nothing you can do. It's literally, you have zero. I mean, what are you going to do? Call the president and tell him, let's go. Get the gyms open. I mean, it's like we're just all sitting around. It's like, find a hobby, finish your basement like I'm doing. But don't sit around. Don't sit around and go crazy because you can't control the world. It's like, hey, guess what? It's spinning without us.
Yeah.
And it's the whole world.
Yeah.
All right. What would be your first 5 steps if you were to take or begin an online business or build your network of clients? I think we kind of already talked about this one.
Yeah, we'd all quit.
Yeah,
my first steps would be to get my tool belt, and my second steps would be outside to start hanging more pieces of siding on my house, because I'd be a carpenter. I would not be building my online business. If I'm like Brendon, if I couldn't coach, I'd be doing something else.
Yeah, I would. I'd be driving a truck or something. I think something where I have to show up at 5 a.m. and I'm done at 2, and that's it. Punch in, punch out. What I will say, the big thing that I've been seeing a lot is people trying to find clients right now, and I think this is the wrong time to be trying to find new people to train. You should have already had people to be training that you should be servicing. You shouldn't be looking for people to train right now.
That's a great point. I didn't think about that. If you're just looking to start your online business right now,
Yeah.
you just picked the worst possible time in history because everybody else is trying to do it too.
Yeah.
We were really lucky in terms of we were switching the Train Heroic thing, and we had already moved the CFSC to online. It probably couldn't have happened better for us.
Yeah.
But it's, sort of, what do they say? Luck is where preparation meets opportunity kind of thing. I mean, we were preparing to do something anyway, and then disaster struck, and we ended up being accidentally prepared for the disaster, but there was no intent.
Kevin, you already mentioned this. Eugenia asked, when giving virtual classes where there's a mix of Gen Pop and athletic populations, what's the safest way to approach it? And I've actually been doing I've been doing free online classes for the healthcare company I work for. And we made all of our classes into keynotes with videos, YouTube videos, and timers. And for each exercise, we put the regression and progression. So say we have push-ups. If you can't do a push-up, your regression is front plank, or you could elevate your hands. And then the progression would be mountain climber push-ups or push-up taps. So to get everybody, we put the regressions and progressions before, but then the consumer or the person working out is the person who has to make that decision. So that is the best way I've found to do it. Or you have to write an individual program for everybody, which again.
Yeah, well, the way we've done it with Zoom is we actually just have adult classes and athlete classes like we normally do.
Yeah.
Separate times. And like that, and it's not like there's much stuff on the schedule to like prevent someone from showing up at the 1 or 2 athlete classes we offer online a day because they have nothing else going on. And so we just have 2 separate classes. And I think if you really want to do that, like you got to devote different time to do it. So you can have different programs and different coaches and things like that. That's worked well for us. And the same thing using like the Train Heroic software, we have an online athlete program and then a general pop program. So just breaking it down into two separate programs.
Yeah. What are you doing right now to currently keep employees engaged? Are you making mandatory at Con Ed, optional, paid work, hands off, etc.?
We continued with our staff meetings on Tuesday, but I think we made it optional, right, Mike? I mean, mandatory / optional.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is like no one's getting paid to be there, so there were people who weren't there, but yes,
Most of them were there.
Yeah, the vast majority were there.
Yeah.
And we're doing
I honestly enjoy
10
it.
live workouts a week.
How many live? 5?
We got 9 Zoom workouts, 2 Facebook and 2 Instagram live.
Cool.
So that's keeping them engaged. And other than that, we told them they've been reading a lot. They've been doing a bunch of stuff.
What's the one thing you've learned about yourself since the beginning of COVID-19?
I'm way more ready to retire than I thought I was. I don't dislike this at all.
I knew that was going to be your
And I'm
answer.
the opposite, Mike.
Bob's the opposite.
Bob's ready to go, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm coming back. Just so you guys know.
Oh, that's why I had to ask that.
Brendon, you might have to move back. Mike goes, I'm going with him.
Well, bring your hammer.
Bring your hammer. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right, CFSC questions. Favorite beer?
Mass Landing Gunner's Daughter.
Oh, that's quick.
Yeah, I'm 40 minutes away from one, just so you know. 38
Well,
minutes.
now, mine's a Bud Light because I can drink a lot of them and I'm okay for most things that I want to do.
I'm a Bud Light guy when I want to drink a lot of them and want to be okay for most things I want to do.
My God.
Kevin, it's got to be.
I have a Lord Hobo that's waiting for me for right after this.
What's
That is your favorite
Wait.
you would declare right now?
Yeah, Lord Hobo. Yeah.
All right.
It's sitting right there for me.
Andrew asks, what has been your favorite result since you started the CFSC? The travel, the success stories, or the changes to the S&C industry? My vote is traveling to Brazil, Italy, and Hungary. Those are my three
I think
pinnacles.
the changes to the strength and conditioning industry.
I think seeing how successful and how good you guys have been has been the biggest thing for me personally, in terms of it's been amazing. You know, it's like the proud father moment of seeing, like, look at these kids, you know, they're like they're killing it. So it's exceeded my expectations in that particular regard.
I agree.
I think it's certainly exceeded everyone's expectations, and like the travel and stuff is great. But like you see, it elevates the whole staff. Like everyone who participates in it, it helps them to become better coaches, better teachers, and obviously grow themselves, grow their career. So I mean, it's been really cool to see that personally. So,
yeah. For me to answer this question seriously, it's the success stories. So I always bring up Maurice, and I hope Maurice is watching right now. Maurice, who interned at MBSC, but he grew up on an Indian reservation, was very not confident in himself. And I'll never forget having him at the Long Beach CFSC event. And he did his whole test very quiet, kind of had his head down, but he knew everything. He knew it front to back. He knew all the regressions, the progressions. And I said, Maurice, you know exactly what you're doing, man. You just need to be a little more confident, stand up straight, like tell me exactly what you want to do. And I remember I made him do that a couple times. And then to see him turn into the coach he's become over the last 6-7 years. And then, I mean, him and I still speak probably a couple times a month, and he's just the nicest kid in the world. But like success stories like that, for me, like the 20-year window that Joe Ehrman talks about, Mike, you talked about, Dan John talks about, like the 20-year window, I guess I'm seeing it now in like the 10-year window, but that's really the, like, for me is like those coaches who then take this stuff and turn into something that they might not have if they didn't take the course. So that's my experience.
It's true.
Is the CFSC recognized as a comparable to the NSCA when listed as a requirement in job posting?
You want the humorous answer or the real answer?
I want the humorous answer and then probably the real answer.
The humorous answer is thank God no. But but no, I mean the reality is it's not, unfortunately, and we struggled with that idea. Obviously, of trying to become nationally recognized. The reality is, to be nationally recognized, we have to water down our course. We have to make it less rigorous than it is, and we decided to not do that because to be nationally recognized, and obviously the guys that are where I'm talking to that are on the webinar already know this, but we'd have to eliminate the practical completely because they consider that to be too subjective. And so in effect, you to be nationally recognized, you have to produce an inferior product. So we have no desire to produce an inferior product, so we're not going that route.
Yep, and they basically, you just answer multiple choice questions and you're certified, which we didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some of them are even true.
Yeah.
Anna asked, in the future, do you anticipate offering continuing ed networking events? So we actually did a CFSC conference, maybe it was the second or third year. And did that replace the winter seminar that year, maybe?
No, we did both.
We did both that year. So yeah, maybe that's something we look into again. I mean, maybe somewhere that we all want to travel to once this thing is over and basically invite our CFSC friends. And then will you be offering level 2 online? I don't personally see that happening because level 2 requires so much more physicality from like a sprinting, linear, lateral speed, cleans, and like we do 2 or 3 a year now because it's just not as popular as level 1. I don't know what you guys think about if level 2.
Rave asked me that question today.
Did he?
Yeah. This is the thing is, in my experience from coaching a lot of the level 2s is that the improvement of the people who attend from day 1 to day 2 is pretty vast because we realize, although we come from like a athlete strength and conditioning environment, many of the people we see that come to these courses might be more personal trainers. So they don't work with athletes as much. So they're not doing things like 5-10-5 or acceleration work or med ball throws or hurdle hops or hang cleans. And so getting the reps all day on day one and then half the day on day two, you tend to see a really big improvement because these people don't necessarily have access to the space or the equipment to do all this stuff all the time anyways. So I just think it's a better experience. And most of the time people are willing to take a level 2 of a course that's going to be 2 days. Like, I mean, they'll commit the time to go and attend. It's just, I just don't know if it translates as well to doing it online.
Yeah.
I actually agree with you guys. I think because of the success of the online level 1, I think we'll be doing a lot more level 2s and a lot less level 1s. I think we'll find ourselves going out and doing a lot of level 2 stuff for people because there's going to be I mean, we've already certified a ton of people through the level 1s, through the live courses, but I think we're going to double or triple that number really quickly with the online. Because I mean, this month online has been crazy in terms of, I mean, I don't know what, I'm trying to figure it out if I,
Is that 50, 60 signups?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
at least, right? I mean, I'm actually going to try to do the math on my calculator here.
81.
81, okay.
One signups.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? We could end up getting 100, 100 level 1s this month before the month is over.
Right.
And, if we decided to keep the price down at that until the end of this, until people get back to work, we might end up doing 200 certs in our online level 1, which means you've got 200 candidates for level 2, which is really what, I mean, now I think it just gets better.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, one of the other questions was, is there going to be a level 3? And realistically, there probably is going to be a level 3 because there's much more beyond that level 2 model. The level 2 model is sort of scratching the surface of the athlete program, getting a 2-day introduction to it. But I do think somewhere down the road, there will be a level 3.
Yeah. I would envision that being more assessment, more conditioning, more in-depth programming, maybe. So,
Yeah. I mean, very, very, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that it could go in terms of,
right.
but I think it seems like it would be the logical progression.
Yeah. Brittany asked, would you do it creating the CFSC over again? I think that's an emphatic yes. And would you change anything about the process? I mean, I was thinking about this and I don't think we'd change anything about it. I mean, the first one we did, we had 60 people and we learned a lot from that event, like the organization of it. But yeah, I don't think I would change anything about the progression and how it went because it went so well. So I don't know if you guys have anything to add there or if you'd change anything about it.
Yeah, I don't think we changed much. I think we learned a lot on how to run events in the first couple of years. But I mean, all of that has been kind of got us to where we are. Since this has kind of exceeded our initial expectations, I'd say, anyways. So, I mean, there's always things you look back and think we could have done better, but that's also part of the process.
Right. But that's the one, someone said, could you change something about the process? We probably could have addressed it because the one issue was the consistency in terms of making it really uniform and, not Kevin's version or Brendon's version or Marco's version. That's probably the one thing that if I look at, really have dialed in the standardization a little bit better earlier on so that we had less kind of more straight science and less art going into it. But that's the one thing that I would look at. But as Kevin said, that's the learning process of doing this and going out and trying to do something really that people hadn't done before. So it's interesting.
All right, business questions. Mike asks, when you first started your business, what was the area or areas you would recommend paying someone else to handle? I would say accountant is my first answer.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't
I think
handle your own taxes.
Bob and I have been really lucky because Bob does all the stuff that I've never wanted to do and don't want to do. And so it's the perfect marriage in that way. He runs the business. I always tell people, I'm like, I don't even think about the business. I don't put any mental energy into that, the actual nuts and bolts business side. So to me, if you're by yourself, that would be the first thing I would do. Like you said, whether it's an accountant, a bookkeeper, somebody who can manage and keep track of the business side of your business, so you can do what you do well. You can coach, and then somebody else can handle the other areas, the areas that you're really not good at. And for me, I mean, I'm not a good business person. It's not my strength. So for me, to have a partner who just handled the business side was absolutely the perfect situation.
I totally agree with Mike. I think that marketing is another thing, because if you're on the gym floor working all the time, you're not going to be able to market your gym. You need to have someone do that kind of stuff for you.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be as simple as just having someone who's getting out and talking to people, because you can't get out of the gym. You can't talk to people about your product if you're coaching. The times that they're available, you're working. And, it's so, yeah, but the biggest thing is just finding somebody who's organized. We tend to be, all kind of left brain people in terms of, not like, just don't have that aspect to us. And so to find somebody that has that kind of right brain, everything in a row, everything the way it's supposed to be, that's what you need in a business setting, because then it really becomes a business, as opposed to, I can remember by Dan Burns at the Early Athletes Performance one time, we were talking, and he said, Mike, it's like managing an artist colony. He said, it's really difficult. He said, these people are all incredibly talented, but they're not all, we have watercolor people, and we have people that do pen and ink, and we have people that oil paint, and we have people, he said, we've got this spectrum of people. And if someone looked and said, what do they do? Well, they're all artists. They're all painting the same picture, but they're painting the same picture in 5 or 6 or 7 different ways. And he's like, we need to standardize how they paint the picture. That's what we've been able to do really well in our business, is avoid that part. The business is really standard. And a big part of that is because I don't have to worry about the business. I'm not looking and thinking, did Brendon pay his dues this month? Or, who owes us money? Or, did we pay the rent? Or, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. If you're trying to do that stuff, you end up being a shitty coach.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that that's what happened to us, I think, with the CFSC, is we have, even when we're that standardized with our program and our philosophy and the way things work, we still have, each coach has their own way of doing things, or who they learned it from, whoever their internship coordinator was, however long they've been there. So that was part of standardizing the CFSC as well.
Yeah, and that's why I always said to Kevin, one of the things I kept trying to get Kevin to do was like, go to the event, but don't coach. Just walk around. Just try to poke the holes in it. Try to figure out, okay, so-and-so's over here teaching. That's not exactly how we want that taught, or that's not the message that we want those people to get, because that, that quality control aspect, and that not letting it, and we still get a little of that. People say, oh, so-and-so said this at my cert. And we'd be like, that probably, I don't know if that represents the consensus, because at some point, with something like this, we have to have a consensus that this is what we believe.
This is what we're thinking.
Right.
And everybody, whether you like it or not, you have to realize that we're going to teach it that way. This is what we believe. And, if you believe a little bit differently, that can't bleed into the teaching process, because that creates confusion for the people that are getting certified.
3 most important things to do or consider before moving forward with opening your own performance space.
Number
Do you want
one, do you want to actually do it?
You want the truth?
Yeah, we want the truth.
Be ready for a lot of obstacles. A lot.
It's not just training anymore. I think that's like my favorite part about the book E-Myth.
1,000 gyms.
Yeah. The book E-Myth, you're now the janitor, the accountant, the marketing agent, the salesperson, the trainer. I feel like a lot of people go in as a technician, but they don't, right? You want to grow out. You want to grow out of your business. You don't want to grow into it.
But I think that's where, like you said, the most important thing is figuring out, do you really want to do this? And E-Myth, like you said, E-Myth is a really good book to read, because the book talks about, should the baker own a bakery? is
Right.
kind of the beginning of the idea in the book. And what you need to realize is just because you're a coach and you like coaching doesn't necessarily mean you should own your own business. If you don't, like, and the bad part is a lot of it, I mean, I guess Bob and I, we were lucky in a way in terms of we were in our 40s, so we weren't old when we started this, but you start looking at this and thinking, there's 10 years, there's a long 10 years ahead of you. I think at every point in the first 10 years, if someone had said, you could get out of this, we probably would have. But then it's like Joe Ehrman said, the 20-year window, all of a sudden at the 20-year mark, like you've got a very mature, healthy business that runs really well and you've got all your systems down. But I'm talking for us, I mean, that was almost 20 years into it before we felt that way. So
Right.
I think that's what you've got to be thinking about is you got to be in this for the long haul. You've got to be thinking, hey, the first 10 years, I might be there. You know, you might have to be there, working 10 hours a day, and you might not be taking vacations, and you might not be, making money. I can remember when Bob and I started, I literally remember I was thinking, when we hit $1 million a year in sales, Bob and I will be rich. Like, we won't know what to do with the money. We hit $1 million in sales, and we were barely paying ourselves. Like, I'm looking, like, I remember saying to him, I'm like, Bob, where did $800,000 go? And he printed, he hit print on his thing, and he showed me, he said, it went here. And I looked down, and it was like rent, salary, Metrex purchases, insurance, this. I'm like, we spent $800,000. How the hell did we do that? And the people, when they go to open a business, they have no basic business acumen, and they don't realize that 15% profit would be good. You did really well. But 15% profit means your profit on $1 million in sales is $150,000. And suddenly you realize, okay, then you're splitting that up and then you're paying taxes on it. It's not like, you think, oh, we got $1 million business. We're making, you got $1 million business. You hope you're breaking $100,000. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not what people think. People don't understand the fundamentals of like income and expense and just looking at things and thinking. So one of the things, like if I'm Steve, before opening my own space, first thing I'd be considering, is there a space I can be where I don't have to pay rent? Really, you know what I mean? Like before I go off and say, hey, I'm going to bite off my own chunk of space and pay rent 24 hours a day. Can I run a program, out of the local baseball academy or out of the basketball academy or that type of stuff in the afternoon where I'm paying somebody,
like we did in Canton, Mike.
Yeah, like we did at Canton. Like I did at BU for a long time. I made as much money at BU the last year I left as we made probably in the first 10 years of the business in terms of, salary per year, because we were putting it all back into the business. We were buying equipment and paying employees, and we were developing what we have now. But to develop what we had now was a significant investment in everything. I mean, like, and that's why now, we've got a great business and great revenue. We're debt free. We've got a lot of really positive things, but it's,
we were debt free.
Yeah, we were.
We were.
We're still up.
As of 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were also working 10 hours, 12 hours some days in the summer, 9 to 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day.
I feel like with the books that people read now, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Ubers, people assume that they can build a gym in 3 years and then sell it to somebody. And
right.
This isn't technology. We're not in software.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And that's where you realize, I mean, you open a tech company, it's so different.
Right.
Here, you've got the biggest expenses are rent and salaries. Right. And you've got to find someone who wants to take on your rent and wants to take on your salaries when they want to buy your business.
Does demographic affect the entire planning process? So she's saying she's coming from the Hamptons, Long Island. Most people want the Barry's boot camps. How much did you guys kind of filter in demographics?
We wanted to be in a territory that had high, medium income, high income.
Right.
You don't want to be in low income areas.
Was Canton, is that why you left Canton? Or?
No, we left Canton because it fell through. That we were in a school there.
Oh, okay.
And then the guy left and we weren't able to stay there.
Yeah, we had a pretty good rental deal. But I think the biggest thing, this demographic, the nice thing about demographics of the Hamptons, rich people,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's exactly
The
right.
difference is, people want Barry's boot camp. Well, I mean, like the one thing that, Bob and I, one of the first conversations we had was that we're going to run our business right. And if we go out of business, we go out of business. But we're not going to run a business for the clients. We're not going to do, things that people want us to do. We're going to do it the way that we think we should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we end up, people don't like it and don't come, then that's okay. And I think that's what you have to do when you look at demographic. The thing is, wealthy people will pay for anything they perceive to have value. And that's the way that it is, whether it's cars, planes, houses, but, personal training. If you look at, people are lining up to pay Ben Bruno a lot of money to train with Ben Bruno because Ben Bruno's the guy to train with. They don't have to worry, but, Ben, they can't come in and say, well, I don't want to lift heavy weights. Ben's like, well, we're probably not a good match for each other in that particular situation because I'm going to make you lift. I'm going to make you train the way that I think you should train. I don't train you the way that you want to train. And I think you've got to have that vision when you go into business that, hey, this is the way I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to all of a sudden start off, offering, yoga classes and Pilates and bar groups and all this stuff just because that's what the people in my demographic seem to want. Yeah, there are those people in our demographic that have wanted those things, and there's people giving it to them, just not us. And you have to have a philosophy.
I know the big.
Yeah, I think the authenticity of the product you offer is part of what makes us successful there too. Like, we never pandered to any of the other types of fitness models, right? Because it's just not what we believe in, obviously. But I think you end up having a tighter culture of people who believe in, like, they see that we really believe in what we do. So you get all these clients who really buy into what we do because it's authentic to, the training system that we believe in.
I would agree.
I know the demographics for Hamptons are difficult, like the Cape, because it might not be the best place because there's only people there 3 months a year. Seasonal. So, I mean, that's the hard part about the Hamptons, or like the Cape. If you owned a gym in the Cape, you'd only have a gym for, June through August, and most people are on vacation and don't want to work out. So maybe that's not the best place to do it. But then you have your locals who, if they are living in the Hamptons, the locals definitely have money. So, Coach Boyle and Bob, what is your recommended amount of cash reserves a business should hold, which during this time is probably the most important thing? Is it
I'm an extremist. I like to keep a lot more than most people. Mike will always ask me, what do we got? And I tell him, and he's going, wow. I'm like, I'm comfortable. I can sleep at night. But I would say no less than 2 to 3 months of operating cost, and with payroll involved.
With payroll.
You look at what's happening right now. If you had 1 month in reserve, you're done.
Yeah.
You couldn't even, you pay a rent and you're done.
Yeah. And I used to always joke that, oh my God, Bob, Bob's like a squirrel, he's like putting all his nuts away for the winter. And now I look at it and think, yeah, Bob was right. So, we have enough money on hand. We will be there when this thing gets lifted, whenever it is. We will still be in business. And I think there'll be other people who won't. So, but obviously, like in Ryan's case, if you're opening your own place, I mean, you may have none in the beginning, but that's what we talk about in terms of building the business.
We didn't have in the beginning.
Right. We really built, we bought used equipment. I mean, the stuff, people would never believe the stories of what we did to save money in the early days. I mean, we literally made our own dumbbells. I scrounged plates to make dumbbells, and I scrounged plates for months to get enough plates to be able to make a full set of really nice compressed and welded dumbbells.
And my friend welded them all.
Yeah, and Bobby's friend welded all the dumbbells for us. And he had like aerospace engineering company. He wasn't doing welding, for knuckleheads like us, but he liked us, so he did it. But
I think he made 100 down, right? 100 pounds down.
We bought the handles from Samson, with the washers and the end caps, and he put them in a press and welded them. I mean, and they were really nice dumbbells. I don't know who ended up with those, but somebody still got those somewhere in their basement because they were never breaking. But we bought Holy Cross's used equipment. when Holy Cross redid their weight room. And these, you know, and I look at people now and they're like, well, you know, I want to get Kaiser, I want to get this, I want to get that. I'm like, you're going to be broke before you know it. I'll be buying your Kaiser. You'll be, you know, I'll be at the going out of business sale. Cents on the dollar. And we've done that a bunch with people that we've advised. I've told people not to do it. And then people have called us back. Hey, you want to buy the equipment? And we're like, yeah, but not for what you pay for it.
Did that with Adi, Mike, remember?
Yeah, absolutely. That, and you know, that's not that wasn't the last person who, you know, I remember, you know, having these conversations with people about, you know, oh, we're going to get the best of everything. We're going to do this. I'm like, you realize because the one thing people, particularly when you're coming from a sports team kind of background, it's not your money. So it's really easy to spend. And when it's your money, you're going to spend it real hard. Like, you're going to be like, do we really need that? And so, you know, you've got to be extremely cautious and conservative and realize, like, you know, Ryan, hey, you know, as every year there's money that you think, hey, it would be great to put that money in my pocket, and this, but instead Bob and I put it in the bank over and over again. And it was money we should, you know, we could take this money out and split it up, or we could continue to kind of build this war chest of money that's going to get us through a crisis like this. And now we're in a crisis and we have the money put aside to be able to do the things that we need to do. So it ends up, it's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult kind of financial pill. As Brendon is listening to this, Brendon will have like a year's worth of expenses, and Rain will be eating Cheerios 3 meals a day, you know, so I have to be careful.
It's worth it, though.
It's worth it. She'll be fine for a year. She'll grow eventually. What procedures do you go by deciding how much you should charge for your services? And then how do you calculate pay for your trainers?
I think at the beginning, the services, we just kind of winged it at the beginning. We kind of figured out if we had 10 kids in a group and what we paid an hour, we just kind of, and then went up on prices like from that. I mean, we've never had a set way to do it.
The difference for us, though, too, is we didn't have any competition. There was no way, like I used to always say to people, it's hard to establish, you know, a price of a car when you're the only car. And people are looking and thinking, I don't even need a car. You know, I got a horse. It works great. You know, and then that was kind of the stuff that we dealt with in terms of people saying, oh, I can go to Gold's Gym for, you know, $30 for the summer. And you guys want me to pay $800. That doesn't make any sense. And we didn't really have anything to compare it to. Now people have lots of comparatives. What I would say, if I'm Jose, don't be the most expensive, don't be the cheapest. Position yourself somewhere in the middle. Because if you're the most expensive, then you've got to deal with a certain demographic, a certain clientele that maybe isn't going to be as much fun to deal with. If you're the cheapest, then you're going to get people who are just looking for a bargain. So that's it. Like, if you look at even our personal training prices, I would say are maybe now a little above average, but not the highest. Certainly, you know, if you looked and said, what's the high end in town Boston, we're not even close.
Right.
So I think that's what you've got to be able to look at. And trainers, I think we looked at, I think the percentage still works out in terms of the trainer gets about a third of what we charge, generally speaking. And
Right.
people are like, what do you mean, you know, that you guys are getting rich off that? And that goes back to the idea of people not understanding business and realizing that, you know, we're paying insurance and we're paying, you know, maintenance, and we're paying for the building and we're paying for the lights. You still don't make a ton of money when you give the trainer 1/3. And it's evidenced by, like I said, when you look at our business model, you know, 15% profit is a pretty good model. So, you know, in that, like, say you charge, let's just make it $90 an hour for a personal training session. The trainer gets 30. We might make 15 off of that session, an actual profit. So we are technically, the owners of the business are making less, half of what you're paying the person to deliver the service. So I think that's the way they're looking at it.
When I read that question, I mean, coming from my perspective as a trainer who worked for the two of you and at MBSC, is the way as a trainer at MBSC you make more money is you have more opportunity. So you gave us the opportunity to open movement as medicine. You gave us the opportunity to get in on certified functional strength coach. So if you're willing to work and there's an idea that you think is worth going for and you present it, like something that would seem to be successful, the two of you have never said no. It's always, let's see what happens. So I feel like a lot of people think that you need to give trainers more money, raises, benefits, but really it could also just be more opportunities to make more money in different ways. That's not the only way that you have to pay somebody. So that's just
But we give benefits and we have a retirement plan, so we have all that stuff in place for them.
right. Loaded question. What makes MBSC so successful? I'm going to assume it's the people, right? It's
The trainers.
Well,
the trainers, the people,
but I always tell everybody, I think what makes MBSC successful is we have a really good product. We have a really good price. We treat our clients well. We treat our employees well. If someone asked me to write a business book, that would be my business book. Have a really good product, charge a fair price for the product, deliver, be really good to the people who purchase the product, and then be really good to the people who deliver the product. If you do those things, you will be successful in any business. I don't care what business you're in. And we do that. But it is the people. The one thing that we do better than everybody else is we screen and hire. We take the best people out of every situation. And that may not necessarily be the best coach right off the bat, but it's the best people. And what we've seen is that those people continue to develop, and those people develop a following, and those people get their own they develop their own tribe. Like our tribe creates their own little mini tribes that are, inside of MBSC. So that's the stuff that makes it go. Because think about it, right? I mean, I always tell everybody, I've told the Kevin Carr story a million times.
I was waiting for it.
After Kevin's internship, Nicole was like, we definitely want Kevin Carr back next summer. And I was like, really? I said, he's kind of quiet. He's like, well, he's only a sophomore in college, and I was like, hey, if you think he's good, you're with him every day, then, bring him back next summer. Now, I might not have done that because I wasn't kind of hands-on enough at that time to know, but I trusted the person who was in charge, who was watching and saying, no, this kid does a really good job. He's going to be a really good coach. It's the same way with you. Brendon was the guy lurking around from AE. Like, who's the guy
He's
from
a
AE?
spy.
It won't go away.
I thought I was a spy trying to steal all the secret information.
You were the spy who wouldn't leave. I'm like, I see her every day. Like right?
I hated it there.
Yeah.
Thought you were
Eventually
stealing
we
programs.
realized that, part of your little UMass mafia, you and them, same way with Hyatt Honor,
Yeah.
right? You guys kept talking about your friend Honor and how great she was. And I was like, I got to meet this Honor character because these other two are pretty good. If they like her so much, she's probably going to be good. And she was really good.
Yeah.
And we've consistently been able to do that over and over and over again. And in odd situations, Steve Bigelow, his dad, my son needs an internship. I had no vision of Steve Bigelow becoming as integral a part of the business as he is right now. Vinny the same way. Dick Umilli called me up. I got a kid, who's looking for an internship for the summer. These were all kind of late additions to the roster. And that's why I'm always looking for the late additions now, because sometimes those late ones have been really good ones. Ken, I don't even know if I knew who Ken was the first month or so that he was there. And, we've gotten so many great people who've become really, really good coaches.
What are your best tips for building a community at the gym?
I'd go right back to what we just said.
Yeah, good people.
Good people. Without question.
Well, I one of my favorite things that you always said was that I think it's in your 25 mistakes, is that you hire good people first. Or no, it's I think certified nice person. We hire CNPs first, and then we teach you. We can always impart knowledge, but I can't make you nicer.
That's right.
I can't make you not an asshole.
Yeah. That's right. And that's true. And so the result is if you're not nice, you're not staying around. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how good a lifter you are. I don't care how good a coach you are. If you're not nice, you're not staying. I feel bad. We've got a bunch of questions in this.
I know.
In the Q&A too. I don't know if we'll get to those because I'm going to check out of here in a couple minutes. So if you got a couple more for me,
Yeah.
fire away because I'm retiring at 7. I thought it was an hour. I told my wife we could eat dinner.
All right. So fitness career, you're also successful. Looking back, what advice would you give yourself to ensure success you've achieved now? Cedric asked, how do I get started? What's the in one piece advice you give all new coaches? I'm making a career change at 43. What's the advice?
I think, looking back, what advice would you give yourself to ensure the success you've achieved? Now, my advice now would be don't do anything different. I think follow your nose a little bit in terms of I just kept kind of, I think I was a falling forward kind of guy in terms of we did some things, the idea of opening a for-profit strength and conditioning business was pretty uncommon 20 years ago, but we did it anyway. So I think the big thing is if you, Coach Parker at BU used to always talk about just do the next right thing, he'd tell the guys. So I think if you're looking back and what advice would I say would be just do the next right thing. Don't make compromises. Don't take shortcuts. Don't make bad deals. Don't get into bad relationships. Those are all things that that are going to be a problem. Cedric, how do I get started? Start. Do you know what I mean? And it's like I said, we're not Nike people, but I love the just do it thing. I mean, how do you get started? You start. I don't know where you are, but you figure out what's forward of where you are because, if you want to coach, then go find a place to coach, go volunteer, you got to be able to have a side gig. You got to be willing to work 2 jobs. There's all these things that if you're not willing to make a lot of these sacrifices, then it won't work. And, career change at 43, my advice is don't quit your day job. Don't be in a situation where you have no income, particularly like, I don't know Anthony, but I always say, look at your economic reality. Do you have a wife? Do you have kids? Do you have bills? Do you have responsibilities? If you do, then you've got to really consider, is this career change the correct move for you to make? Because as much as I'd love to add, I tell everybody that this is awesome. You'll love it. It's great. The harsh reality is that it takes a while to make money in this industry. And at 43, you may have financial responsibilities that are going to mean you're back looking at your own job. And that's what's cool now, like kind of with the gig economy, the way it is, you can keep your job. I tell people that all the time. Just go to your boss and tell them you want to work less. If you're good at your job, probably 90% of the time your boss would say, okay. Because good employees are really hard to find. And if someone came in and said, hey, I know I was working 40 hours a week, I only want to work 20. Like if anybody that coached for us said, I only want to work 20 hours a week. If they're one of our best coaches, I'd be like, fine. What 20 you want to work? Pick them. I'll find somebody else to work the other 20, right? Why would I lose a really good employee because they decided, hey, I want to maybe pursue something along a little different vein at that particular time. So I would just say, don't make a wholesale career change. Don't make a big leap at that age unless you've got a trust fund that's going to make it easy for you.
We had one of them.
We did.
It came at 40.
Yeah. But that's one.
And he's
So.
still here.
All right. Well, hey, I'm cutting out. I'm going to go eat, guys. It's been a pleasure.
All right.
I appreciate it. Sorry if I monopolized the floor here.
I appreciate it. Thanks,
That was
Mike.
great.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to add to what Mike just said, I got this question once at a Perform Better Q&A, and I remember my answer. So I look at training or being a trainer as the first 5 years, and then you have the 5 years after. So the first 5 years, my first recommendation is to spend 10% of your income on continuing education. And yes, that's a lot of money, but if you spend it on the Con Ed, there's a book by Brian Tracy, who's a business consultant, and he said that the best investment is in yourself and that you'll get a 30-to-1 return on your investment for every dollar you spend on continuing it. Now, 30 to 1 seems to be a little ridiculous, but I like the idea of like investing in myself. If I invest $200, that'll eventually come back and be what, $6,000 to me over the life of my career if I decide to go to this event and I meet these people. And then the second thing was, is I always say yes to every opportunity. So I remember Bob, the reason why I got a job at Boyle's was because nobody wanted to coach the 6 a.m. morning group. And Bob asked me if I would do it for $20. And I said yes immediately because no one else would do it. So if Bob had asked me to, Mike and Bob said, train the trash can, I would have trained the hell out of the trash can if they wanted me to do it. So
That goes to show how your experience at the gym before this was.
yeah, right. So I always tell people the best thing that ever happened to me was working at a gym that did everything wrong and treated me like shit. I had a different perspective coming to Boyle's, because if you've only trained at Boyle's and it's the only place you know, you think it's right. It's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory there. It's like, it's not reality what the rest of the industry is like. And then my third piece of advice is to find somebody who's doing what you're doing and latch your wagon onto them. I mean, that's why I went to MBSC, is because Mike and Bob were doing exactly what I wanted to do for my career. And then at year 5, you save 10% of your income instead of, well, you still go to Con Ed, but you save that 10% instead. 2 is you learn to say no, which is the most difficult thing I've had a problem with in my career. Is I've said yes a bunch so much that it's really hard for me to now say no, but you need to learn to say no or you'll be burnt out. And then the third thing is you find a new mentor or a new, because we all evolve, we all move on. I would say my next mentor was Dan John. So I had Mike, Bob, everyone at MBSC, and then 4 or 5 years later, Dan John came along and he was doing a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do. And so now I have Mike and Dan as my 2 like big mentors, and then still kind of continuing to evolve from there. So
going back quick to the education part,
yeah.
Kevin and Brendon were unbelievable doing that. They were always going on seminars, spending money on themselves to get better. And me and Mike were like, these guys are unbelievable. I mean, they constantly were getting different certs. You know, I'm going to this one, we're going to that one. And then it was you guys that made us decide to give a stipend every year on continuing education. You guys were doing it so much, we felt bad, and you guys got so educated. No, it was great. You guys made it better for everybody.
Well, yeah. That was the opportunity you gave Kevin and I to do the mentorships too. Because it used to be Mike only did the mentorships, and then because Kevin and I went to so many courses, you said that we could help with the mentorship, which actually is what started the CFSC.
Right.
Because if Kevin and I hadn't helped at the mentorships, we would have never started the CFSC course.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about the 30 to 1 payoff, that almost seems accurate to me when I think, because remember, when we first started Movement is Medicine, we took a sizable amount of money that we actually made money the first year. And we went and we put that back into education. That because that was all in like the year we were finishing massage school. We had started to finish massage school, and we started Movement is Medicine. We immediately took all the money that came from running the massage business and put it into like 10 courses right there. So then all of a sudden we're looking at being 24, 25 years old. And I've been through a whole bunch of different courses in the matter of like 18 months. And it helped change our perspective on top of like the 5 years of practical hands-on coaching that we had. It allowed us to level that up. And
they almost kicked us out of massage school because we missed so much school in order to go to continuing education courses. I almost didn't graduate because my attendance was so low.
But and then the whole getting started thing that he said, how do you start? It's like ready, fire, aim. Like I'm sure like when Bob and Mike started a gym, they didn't read like Gym Ownership for Dummies first, right? And like when we opened CFSC, like we didn't know how to run a certification business till we ran a certification business. So going back to people asking like mistakes and things you change, like the only way we knew it was by doing it. I think a lot of people have the idea that when people start a business, they have everything together. After you've run multiple businesses, you start to learn more. but you have to, I mean, talk to people, have mentors, things like that. But at some point you have to start. And I think a lot of people just don't start. So get some advisement and then just got to get the ball rolling.
Good advice, Kevin.
Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of it's going to be one question, but I have three kind of questions that will kind of meld together here. So we have, what's important for a trainer with 7 years experience what's more important, experience, marketing, or education? What do you advise, when do you advise trainers to leave a big box gym? Zach asked, what's the best way to get coaches who are in a health club to buy into the philosophy or the MBSC style? And then how do you navigate working alongside strength and conditioning coaches who don't have the same philosophy as you? So they're kind of philosophy questions.
I think the buy-in the coaches at the health club when to move on to a Thrive is go after the CFSC coaches that are looking to move.
Yeah, and we have, I think, 6,000 people now
Right.
in CFSC, so they're easy to find if you post in that group or our Facebook group with CFSC.
You look at the hire, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
And
sorry, Kev, you go.
no, and I think, and I know Zach, and I think like coming into a health club, say you're coming into a health club, like for instance, we did this with Faça, right? Like you go into a health club where there's already a bunch of coaches there, and we see this a lot, and they don't necessarily have, it's like an artist colony, like what Mike said. Like you go in and there's not a way of doing business, and I think you have to go and like just the reason we have so much unanimity in what we do at MBSC is because we've educated our staff so much. So it becomes their belief system, right? It's like we've indoctrinated the people that work there. And in truth, we got rid of people who didn't. Like there's been plenty of people who we've gotten rid of because they didn't believe our system. But you have to go full in. You can't allow, there's just those 3 people over there that like do their own training stuff, but the rest of us will follow the philosophy. You got to be unanimous. Like we don't allow anyone to kind of freestyle it however they want. And when we really bought into that and put all our effort into educating and getting rid of the people who didn't want to follow and walk in line, then all of a sudden there was a universal thought process,
Yeah, and so I'll come at this so when I moved to California, I worked in multiple different gyms where everybody's their own independent contractor. So everyone is free to do whatever they want. And I know Mike said this about the Red Sox. When Mike went to work at the Red Sox, you don't go into that setting and try to convert everyone to your way. You go in and you just do your job, and you do a really good job at what you do, and you show everyone like your experience, your professionalism, your knowledge, and then all of a sudden people are like, hey, can you like tell me more about what you're doing? Like, oh, I heard you teach this course, like, can you teach me more? And so by the time I had left these gyms, half of the people that were trainers there had taken the CFSC because they just watched what I did with my clients and thought it was good stuff, and they became interested. And then when they ask, I educate them. So instead of me going in and being like, you're all a bunch of idiots, like don't stand on that, that's stupid, that's a dumb exercise. I know Mike has said this about the Red Sox. Like Mike didn't go into the Red Sox and completely turn over the clubhouse and say, all the stuff you're doing now is stupid, stop doing that. Like Mike went in and just learned everybody's name. He learned how they worked, like how the system worked, what the players like to do. And then he started to incorporate his stuff. And he said, I remember he said it took him 2 years to even implement the MBSC philosophy in the Red Sox setting, even though that's what they brought him in to do. So I think you've got to just do a really damn good job at what you already do, and then people will ask you and want more information. So that's my perspective of going to a place that is not MBSC, where you don't have the choice where you can decide that everyone has to agree or not agree with your philosophy. So. Oh, how do you separate yourself from other coaches or trainers? My answer, I just went through it. Like you do a great job. You go through like, I mean, my philosophy is the CFSC and MBSC, and I just live that, and I use it with everybody. I believe in it. I don't stray from that just to serve other people, and other people recognize that and see that I speak and teach for all these things, and then they want to know more about it.
Yeah, and I'd say you don't necessarily separate yourself as much as your clients separate you from all the other trainers for you. Like if you look at, like, because Brendon just said he went and did a good job, and not only do those trainers think like, oh, that looks cool, I'm also sure he was probably one of the consistently busiest and made the most money out of the people who were private contractors in that gym, because he kept people healthy, didn't get them hurt, he was personable, got them to their goals. And then all of a sudden, like economically, a lot of these things take care of themselves. Like a guy like Ben Bruno, who's probably our most well-known former employee in CFSC, like he did a really good job with some people who, you know, are really well-known and have a lot of money, right? So then you keep doing a really good job, and all of a sudden, it's not like he had to consciously think about how he set himself apart as much as he just really believed in his system and treated people great. And then all of a sudden, like he's got people lined up out the door to pay a lot of money and to see him.
I remember a staff meeting where I don't know who made the checklist, but somebody made an over delivery checklist. Do you remember that? Maybe it was Rodriguez. And like you read the over delivery checklist and you realize like, if I just over delivered, and the checklist isn't difficult, it's like, did you text your clients once this week? Did you ask your client about their kids and about what they had for breakfast? Like super simple stuff, but you realize over delivering, it's simple, but not easy. Like we all know what we need to do to over deliver, but there's work involved. So if you over deliver, you're already ahead of 90% of most people / trainers / any job that you work at. So how do you begin lecturing at colleges and seminars? What's a piece of advice you wish you had gotten prior to presenting at your first conference?
Could do a lot of talking for free first. I couldn't tell you about all the times I went. Bob would line me up. I spoke at Nestle headquarters. I spoke at like
headquarters? I didn't know
Nestle headquarters in Haverhill. I did that for free. I spoke at like the town days in Stoneham, in Woburn. Like, yeah, I spoke to 1 million soccer parents,
hockey teams, everything.
Hockey parents. You just say yes. Don't think, like Brendon said, how you got to say no eventually. With speaking, until you're really doing a lot of it, just say yes, because you're not going to be good at it for a while. Like you're not, so you'd rather screw up in front of the people that work at the Nestle plant up who are there for their.
We got clients out of that, Kev.
We did. Right. And you go and you do these, I did these Lulu things. Like you have to just go and speak, say yes. Brendon and I would go back to UMass. I still go back to UMass every year for free. Right. But we went and we got interns. That's how we got Ken. That's how we got Christina, by going and speaking at that thing. Right. But it was just experience in front of a crowd. And then after a while, you're not nervous anymore. Well, you still maybe get nervous, but you're comfortable speaking in front of a group of people and you're putting together a presentation. So you just need reps. So don't say no, because not enough people are going to ask you to come speak. So if you get an opportunity, you got to capitalize.
I would guess that I did at least 100 free talks. And I don't mean like I stand up on stage and I give a speech every time. I remember I took over the internship program and I would force myself to present to the 5 or 6 interns. So they would sit in the classroom and I would stand up and present a keynote, and that is presenting. So it doesn't have to be going somewhere. It could be just presenting at your own staff meeting and taking it seriously. So I would say within, 2-3 years, I did about 100 talks before I ever got even like a quarter better. Because I was, we watch those videos now, Kev, because we have them, and we were terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
So bad. So, Bob, have you done any speaking?
To schools and stuff. Yeah, that's about it. Hockey programs, and early on, I did a ton.
Yeah.
I'm answering a lot of these questions, by the way, as you guys are talking. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The best advice I ever got presenting at my first conference was actually from Mike. So I remember I emailed Mike and I said, hey, Mike, I want to do like a really cool lecture on, I can't remember what it was, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, don't waste your time, because you want to present to the 80% of the room that have never heard of who you are or what you do. Because I was trying to impress the 10% of my friends and the people I deem as really super smart. And I wanted everyone to think that I was super smart. So I made this ridiculous outline of this crazy talk that I was going to give to make sure everyone knew that I was smart. And Mike was like, no, you're already on the stage speaking. People know you're smart. You have to present something that is simple and easy, which ended up becoming my building an adaptable training model, which was the regression progression sheet that we created. So I created something that would grab 80% of people instead of 20% of the people that I was trying to impress. So that was the best advice I ever got. And that's how I've made every presentation since, is helping 80% of people instead of trying to impress 20% of people who are already really good or smart at what they do. Or my friends who sit in the front row and heckle me, I'm not trying to impress them because they would sit there even if you sucked. So you have to impress the 80% of people who might not know who you are, what you do, or understand your philosophy. And that's how you have to create your presentation. It's like if Kevin, you went to Nestle, right, and you started presenting to them about the diaphragm and why they should be doing more breath work in the nose, out the mouth, and how your rib cage moves, like they would completely tune you out. So you've got to think about your audience, and that was probably the best advice I ever got. And that was from Mike. I remember I sent him an email and he told me not to do it. So I had to redo my whole presentation. Kev, you'll like this one. How do I find, so I looked this up. In America, it's niche.
Of course it's niche.
The rest of the world, it's niche.
Well, neither
Nietzsche.
of those.
It's not Nietzsche.
It's Steve, what was his name?
Steve Hartman.
Steve Hartman's Nietzsche.
I hope he's watching right now. I bet he is. Steve, we miss you. Steve's
Absolutely. One of my favorites.
One of my favorites, Steve Hartman. He's doing a cooking show now on Instagram.
No way.
Yep, he does an Instagram cooking show. Sugar, I think it's all sugar-free.
Yeah. So how do you find your niche? I mean, I think if you, sometimes people try too hard at this, and I go back and forth. Like, obviously there's examples of like people having a niche. Like Cressy obviously has a really strong baseball niche that carries their business, and that's been amazing for them.
I mean, whereas like hockey forever, right?
Yeah, but now I'd say you walk in and it's less. I mean, it's still a hockey niche. That's the majority of our athletes. But if you look at any hour that's who's in the gym training, it's pretty varied, right? And sometimes it's good to be a really good generalist, especially if you're in general population. But if you keep finding like, hey, I could make a living just working on, like if I were to be a therapist, hey, I only do, work with runners, right? Maybe that's what you say. If you can build a business on that, I just think if you're going to build a large sustainable business with like a bunch of employees, then you want to be a more general person. But if you're a one man or one woman band, I guess you could probably be more of a single lane person. But for a larger business, I think you want to have a general approach.
I always go back to the book Raving Fans, and what your raving fans do is they pretty much decide what your niche is. So, for example, Stu and Nancy, or no, not even Stu and Nancy, Steve Natilli, I can go back and trace all of my clients, almost every single one of them, to him, to one person. And so like that one person that you train and introduces, because you do such a good job with them, introduces you to the rest of their friends who generally like the same stuff that they do. And all of a sudden now you train that type of person. So for example, if you train runners and you do a really good job with runners, all of a sudden now you're a running coach. Or you do one good job with one runner who has a lot of friends, now you're a running coach. I worked with triathletes in San Francisco. I've never trained a triathlete in my life. And I became friends with a chiropractor, and his girlfriend was a professional triathlete. I started training her, and now all of a sudden I have 15 triathlete clients. And now I train triathloners. And I knew nothing about triathlon before. But because I trained one person with what I know, she introduced me to everybody else, and her coach introduced me to all his people. And now so like, I think the niche kind of finds you. And I would say that probably happened. I don't know if that happened with Cressy. I want to say I've heard a story where that is what happened to him. He started just training. So he likes baseball. So he started training some baseball guys.
100%. That's what he did.
And then baseball guys were like, hey, this guy's really good at what he does. So
He became the baseball guy.
yeah, more baseball guys come, and that's how it happens. So I think it sometimes finds you.
And Mike became the hockey guy because that's what he did at BU.
Yeah. And Mike never played hockey in his life. He swam and powerlifted. Right? I don't think Mike Mike was a swimmer.
I think he played football in high school, though.
Oh, played football? Okay. Which got him probably into powerlifting.
I think he did. I'm not sure, but I think so.
So I put these in here because I probably have a very, very bitter view of social media and business. But from a business perspective, what would you do if social media ceased to exist tomorrow? I think I think all our businesses would be fine. CFSC might take a hit. If you own a gym, though, like in my experience, like you don't get people from social media or podcasts or content creation. You get people who live within 10 square miles of your gym. Like people who are on Instagram live all over the world. And like, so maybe our online product like CFSC, we might take a little hit. But if you own a gym business and personal training clients, like you can't personal train people unless they live within your area. And I'm not getting a lot of people, hey, I listened to your podcast, I want to personally train with you. Like that doesn't happen. Like if you work with other coaches, then it might matter. But personally, like social media didn't exist tomorrow, I'd be fine because I would just find people to train within 5 to 10 miles of me. And like Mike said, you go out and you meet people.
Well, like you were saying about Steve Natili, I could walk in the gym at any hour and name off where these people were referred from, like who have been coming, like you said, Stu and Nancy, and then they've referred probably 5 other people, right? So you start to think about like the word of mouth is everything. And then I talk to Bob about this all the time. Like if you go up to our Middleton facility, like the unique thing about Woburn is we're at the end of a dead end road, and like the GPS doesn't even go to the gym. Like if you put on the GPS, it stops like 100 yards short. But people still just walk in and be like, hi, can I train here? But if you go to the Middleton facility, there's a hockey rink. There's 2 hockey rinks in there. And there's hundreds of parents all the time coming and going, standing downstairs. And if social media didn't exist, you go walk down, here's a business card. Oh, hey, set up a table. Do you have any questions about, I'd put up a sign. You see that like meme of the guy sitting in Central Park being like, prove me wrong at the table. Yeah. Like I would say, like, ask me any training question you want and put up a stack of business cards and go around and talk to people. Well, obviously once this whole social distancing thing ends, but like that, like word of mouth, like giving out business cards, like it's very effective if you can start a conversation in your personal. So I mean, if social media, I think the gym would be fine. So like you said, CFSC might take a hit, but as far as a brick and mortar business, it's all about mostly word of mouth for us.
Yeah, and even if you own an online business, most of the online people you're going to work with are people that come to your gym already. So it's people who live 10 miles within the area. So yeah, it's really getting out there. One thing I will say is like what's helped, I think, us a lot, Kevin, is all that Con Ed that we did. The amount of people that you and I have met in those continuing education events, like there's no price that I could put on that. So that's where the 30 to 1 return comes to, is the amount of, maybe not money, but the amount of like stuff that I've gotten back from those people. Either like we sleep at their house when we visit, we go on vacations with them.
Uncle Jim,
Jim, like every time I come to Boston, I have a room to stay in because of that, because of the people that we've met. So I call this social capital. So don't think of like going to a course and thinking that like, oh, I'm just spending money to learn, like it's too much. Like the social capital you build at these courses or networking events is so huge, and you will be repaid handsomely over the life of your career. And if you, like I always tell everyone, if I train till 2055, which is my retirement year, I would have been training for 46 years. And if I don't want to train 46 years getting up at 5 a.m. and training one person at a time for 10 straight hours. So if you want to build up social capital, but also business capital, like you're going to have to find other ways than just training people one-on-one until you're 65. So that's kind of, I guess, my thoughts there. Anything to add, Kev or Bob?
It's good for me.
Bob, you think Boyles would be hit if social media stopped tomorrow?
The gym, no. I think
Yeah.
the cert, yes.
Cert, yes. Jim, no.
Just because of the marketing on the cert is all social media.
Yeah, and I mean,
We're
people,
marketing social media too, but I think we're established long enough that and I don't think it would hurt, but
yeah,
unfortunately, social media and the internet's not going away.
no.
No.
Well, and we draw people for the CFSC from all over the world, whereas MBSC is drawing people only from the area. So, good tips for women coaches, business owners in our industry. And we're all men. She recognizes that we're all men. So,
well, I mean, I think that you have to, and I always encourage the women that work for us to like try to establish themselves as an educator and establish themselves as a leader. And I think go out and pursue positions and opportunities, because for us, when I could tell you just from looking at the internship, the pure statistics of looking at our internship applications is we get far fewer applications from day one. So like the people applying to work for us on day one, there's way less women than men. And I don't know if that's because of kinesiology programs or like if that's just the industry as a whole, or if that's just because they're not being pursued, like they're not pursuing, internship opportunities or whatnot. But we try to like take as many women into the internship as we can, and then we try to promote them as educators and leaders on the staff as much as we can. So, go out and pursue internships, pursue coaching opportunities to put yourself in a position of leadership, because the more you see female coaches higher up in the industry, the more you're going to see them come up, because they'll have someone to look up to, rather than them always looking up to myself or Brendon or Mike or Bob. Like, we want to have female leaders in the industry too, so we have to create them. And if you're a business owner, I think you should try to prop up the women you have to be leaders as well, because then you'll probably have more women that come and work in your facility to begin with.
And we're always looking for female coaches, always.
Always.
I remember that someone asked the question at a Perform Better Q&A why there weren't more women speakers at the Perform Better events. And I remember Aaron McGurr took the mic and said, we don't have enough women that apply. And so they want more women, but they're not applying for those positions. And I mean, I understand that like there's the perception that it's a men's career path and all that, but like you're saying, like the apply to, like we talked about, say yes to every opportunity, apply for every opportunity for, like, because MBSC is always looking for female coaches, Perform Better is always looking for female speakers, and they take as many as they can. They just don't get enough applications. So put in your name and again, do a great job. And I think a really good thing is the I'm forgetting her name, but the girl who is the coach for the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh yeah.
She's putting coaching on the map. There's Rachel Balthavec, who just became the New York Yankees hitting coach with Eric Cressy. So she's she's a former strength and conditioning coach first, and is now the New York Yankees hitting coach. So like, those are the people that, you want to follow. And again, like you said, Kevin, looking to help prop them up and help prop you up. So what's the most common mistake you see coaches make? Number one, they train themselves way too much. And they post only about themselves and how great they are. Those are my two biggest mistakes. Like, if you want to promote the people that you're helping, and you don't want to make it all about you. It's about them. And the trainers that I've seen have the toughest time at MBSC are the trainers who work out for 2.5, 3 hours, 4 hours a day, and then they're mad that they're not making enough money. And it's like, hey, like if you just trained 45 minutes to an hour and got a shower, and didn't buy 4 Starbucks and your lunch at Whole Foods, you might save a little bit of money, and you'd have more time to train people or educate yourself to get better. But that's honestly the biggest mistake that I see is either you don't make it about them, you're making it about yourself still, and you only post about yourself, and you work out and only care about your workouts, not the people that, because that once you choose to make this your profession, it is no longer about you and your workouts. Your workout takes a back seat. That's the problem with following your passion, is that your passion no longer becomes your passion anymore. It becomes your job. So like, take care of yourself, work out, but not 4 hours a day. Or, I mean, Bob, I know.
Right on the money. Right on the money.
Right on the money, Bob. I know. I knew you would agree with that. I mean, that's the reason why a lot of people have either left or been fired, right?
Read your chat.
Yeah.
Chat.
Yeah. Well, there's like,
Brendon.
yeah.
I'm reading it.
Well, there's well, this is the, I see it. Well, there's the thing is like, from 2 angles. One, I think a lot of people just don't do the math on like how much they need to work in this industry to make a living to begin with. I think when sometimes we talk to young coaches who might be frustrated about their income and things like that, it's okay. Well, like, how much money do you want to make? Right? Okay, if say you want to make $75,000 a year, how much money do you have to make per month? Okay, if you're going to work that much per month, how many hours do you have to work per week? And then really putting that in perspective. And when I talk, like when we go to UMass, we talk to those kids, I say, okay, like, you know what the mean income for a personal trainer in the United States is like around $36,000 a year, right? And like, I would say the majority of people who like, you know, if you work at a place like NBC and you work full time, you're going to make much more than that, much more, right? But you have to work full time. I think like people realize like working 40 hours a week, personal training is hard. It's like tiring work. But if you're only working 20 hours total, you're probably not going to make a living, right? So you have to sit and do the math and say, okay, how many hours do I have to work? And okay, that means my workout is going to be 35 minutes. That means I'm going to, you know, go in early on Monday, Wednesday, Friday and get 3 or 4 extra hours that day and do the math. And if you do that, then it's very plain to see, like, you got to devote enough time. And then from a programming standpoint, again, it's not about you. I think Mike always says, like, it's not about what you like. I think programming, you see way too many coaches that are like, they like Olympic lifting, so everyone Olympic lifts. They like kettlebells, so everyone's a kettlebell guy or girl. And you have to look at each client and say, okay, what's the tool for this job? Like, you couldn't be a contractor or a carpenter and be like, no, I'm a big saw guy. I only use saws when I build houses. I just hammer the nails in. I just use the handle, and you know, it doesn't work so well when I got to do fine work, but I go for it. Like, you have to have different tools and different techniques, and when you cannot marry yourself to one identity, which I think is why the gym is successful and our coaches are successful, because we haven't married ourselves to a tool or to a certain technique.
Best advice someone ever gave you? I'll go first. The 20-year window. So the 20-year window is in Joe Ehrmann's book, Inside Out Coaching. And then when Mike had us all read that, Mike then did a staff meeting on the 20-year window. So you don't know the effect that you've had on somebody until 20 years later. So if you train a kid between the ages of 11 and 14, you don't know how good of a coach you are until you're 20 years older and they're in their 30s, 35, 40 years old. Because if they grow up to be like a good person and they continue to be healthy and they played professional sports, then like, you did your job, but you won't know for 20 years. And then I heard Dan John answer this question at Perform Better, and he said that in 20 years, what do you want to be able to do? Like, I want to walk down, I want to bring my daughter or walk her down the aisle for her wedding. I want to be able to dance with my kids. I want to be able to travel the world. Like, what will really matter in 20 years? And if you work backwards from 20 years, what will matter? You get a much different answer than what matters today, right now. And I guess that's like, I don't want to get philosophical, but the conundrum of life is, how do I live in the present moment, like today and now, but save my money and live like I'm going to live for the next 20 years? And so everything in moderation, including moderation, I think. But that was the best advice I ever given, is always be looking 20 years ahead and make your decisions. So the reason why I moved to California to be with my daughter was because I knew in 20 years that would be more important for me to spend time with her and watch her grow up than to have a 20-year-old show up on my doorstep and say, hey, where were you the last 20 years? So like, you always have to have the foresight, and it's very difficult to do because what matters right now is all the right BS that's happening with COVID, and everyone's uncertain, like what's going to happen. Like, okay, 20 years from now, we'll have forgotten about this. So you got to keep looking into the future. And that's the best advice I think I've ever gotten from a career standpoint.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Can you either of you top that? And I'm just.
Oh, that was good. That was really good.
Yeah, that was really good. I think that was perfect.
All right. Biggest fitness career decision you've made, Kev, would probably be
I interned.
interning. Yeah.
I mean, for me, like, there's the why I always tell people, I think I feel very blessed because, a lot of people kind of wander around the fitness industry and then find their way after a while. Like, this was my first job. I worked at Gold's Gym and I worked at the rec center at UMass. That's it before this. So I didn't have enough time to pollute my mind with a bunch of nonsense first, right? No.
Yeah.
Like, they always say it's hard when you have interns that you have to like reteach, or like these people like struggled for a long time. Like, for me, I started at Boyle's, like how lucky I was because of that, because I had some guy at Gold's Gym who I saw doing single leg squats, and he said, you should try to apply for an internship. And so I didn't know, like, when I applied for an internship, I didn't know where I was applying. It was just dumb luck, like, I looked into it. It was near where I lived. I was like, I could drive there every day. I wore a tie, and Bunky said, yes, maybe that's the best career. I wore a tie to my interview. And Bunky, when he saw I had a tie, said yes. So, I was very lucky. So, but I mean, I think how can that translate to these other people is go and apply for internships. Apply for, like, that's the only way you're going to get your foot in the job to work and to get get your foot in the door. A lot of places say, can I volunteer my time? And I did that also. I went to BU and helped for a while. I went to Merrimack and interned for about 6 months. Like, it helped me figure out what I wanted to do. But I think putting yourself in position to intern and put yourself in the environment is how you'll learn what you want to do and how people will trust you to work for them.
Yeah, the best thing that ever happened to me was that company that I was working for before MBSC, where I was the culprit. I was the spy. Offered me a job. They offered me a salary as one of the head trainers for $30,000 a year, and it was so bad there that I actually went and the next week started on Tuesday afternoon for my internship at Boyle's, working for free instead of taking the salaried job from the gym I didn't want to work at. And I worked for free for, I think it was 1 month. There was 2 other interns, and both interns quit the first week. So I was the only other intern. And again, this was, Bob was walking around looking for somebody to take the 6 a.m. adult group. And I was probably the only live body in the gym at the time. And he found me and said, hey, do you want to take this 6 a.m. adult group? And I had only been an intern for 4 weeks, but I had come from that other place and they knew me already because I was spying on them. And they gave me that opportunity right away. But the best thing I did was turn down a job that I didn't want, that was going to pay me $30,000 and work at MBSC for free, driving from my parents' house, sleeping on their couch. I sound like every entrepreneur on earth, sleeping on my parents' couch, driving uphill in the snow both ways. But yeah, so like that was the best decision I ever made, was to not work for a place I didn't want to work for, and to do a free internship. Again, it was my second free internship, and here we are.
And we're glad they both made them decisions.
Thanks, Bob. I want to say this is the last question. Yeah, last question, then we'll be done. Susan,
Last question, drum roll.
drum roll. Ideas for expanding your business beyond training hours, i.e. education or corporate presentations, or I would even like to hear from Bob a little bit about because Bob, it's not just the gym. You have multiple other revenue streams that you've worked with.
Yeah,
I said, like, you gave people opportunities to make more money, and it benefited the gym and what you and Mike do.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely getting the education out there, and right now, I mean, it's wide open for all these Zoom classes and education on Zoom. And I mean, as far as expanding your business beyond the training hours, I mean, once you're closed right at night. But
yeah,
I mean, I think that's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I think being able,
mentorships.
Yep.
Yeah.
being able to do something where, like, an online education obviously is game changing, because you're not trading dollars for hours. Once you put the work in and put the material together, yes, there's some day-to-day maintenance and you're continually updating and things like that. But like Mike said, a godsend for us has been the online course over the last month. Like we can't teach courses. So when you think about it for CFSC, I would say the training hours is those live workshops, which we love doing and will always be a big part of it. But when that gets taken away from you, do you still have money coming in? And having some sort of online product that can be additional income is obviously can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, we already talked about like doing free presentation. Basically, it really comes down to doing a bunch of free stuff first and getting really good at it, and then charging for it later. So, I mean, these webinars are a perfect example. Like, I've never held a webinar in my life. I've never held a podcast. Like, but we're putting them out there. We're doing them for free. We're building on this. We're trying to improve how it goes. And like, maybe it turns into something, maybe it doesn't. But the whole, like, how do you get started? Like, I don't know. I just bought a Zoom webinar thing, and I just started asking people if they wanted to come listen to us speak. And yes, I understand that we have a large platform to build from, but the platform had to start somewhere. So I just encourage people to find those opportunities and then be willing to just start putting it out there and then work from there. And yeah, we've been lucky enough. So I always think about like Bob, you were saying, to have people in the gym and come for training, you can only do that so many hours per day. But like, once you made that system, you guys started charging people to just come watch Mike coach. And
Exactly.
people were willing to pay for that. So, and that didn't cost you anything because Mike was already going to coach anyways. So like, there are ways to make extra money once you get really, really good at something, whether that's like a person like Mike who is really, really good at what they do, or having a system like we were talking about the E-Myth, which I read the E-Myth every year. I've read it for 6 straight years, right, Kev?
Oh my God.
Ever since we opened Movement is Medicine, I've read it every year. You can then sell your system. I mean, people buy McDonald's system. People buy the Thrive system through MBSC. There's other gym franchises. There's Massage Envy is a system that people buy. So eventually you can sell your systemization. And if you have a star coach, you can sell that star coach. Kelly Starrett has done that with the Mobility Wad. Like, they have a gym, San Francisco CrossFit, which is, they just use that as a platform to sell Kelly and his products, his books, and how good of a coach and therapist he is. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But again, I think it comes down to that, what I said, the first 5 years of your career, you just got to spend training everybody and everyone under the sun for whatever amount of money that is. Spend 10% of your income on education, and then find a mentor, right? Like Mike Boyle was doing exactly what I wanted to do. And that's why I found him and agreed to work for free for Mike and Bob and do an internship, was because that's what he was doing, exactly what I wanted to do. And you have to find those people. So I'm talking too much.
No, you did a great job.
Good job.
All right, guys. Any parting last words before I hit
No,
stop?
this was great. I always enjoy it. Thank you.
I hope Bruno and all of our Brazilian friends enjoyed. I forgot to
Yeah.
mention at the beginning that this is being translated into Portuguese right now. So,
Saúde.
Saúde. All right, guys. We'll probably do this again in the future. So
Yep, absolutely. Thank you
Thanks
all.
for getting on, guys.
thanks, Bob. Bye, Kev.
Bye.